First contact shock. Commander Elena Reyes stood on the bridge of the UES Valiant, her posture rigid and her expression carefully neutral. Through the reinforced viewports, she watched as the delegation of alien ships approached. Their vessels gleamed like jewels against the backdrop of space, elegant, streamlined, and adorned with what appeared to be purely aesthetic embellishments. In comparison, the Valiant looked like what it was, a weapon of war designed for function over form. "They're requesting permission to dock, Commander," Lieutenant Park said from his communications station. "Granted," Elena replied. "And notify all sections to prepare for diplomatic visitors. Full honor guard in Hangar Bay 3. As the first representatives of humanity to meet the Galactic Cooperative Alliance, the crew of the Valiant carried an enormous responsibility. Humanity had only recently developed faster-than-light travel, and within months of their first exploratory jumps beyond Sol, they'd encountered the Alliance, a federation of 17 spacefaring species that had been sharing the galaxy for over 2 millennia. Elena straightened her uniform and headed for the hangar bay. The United Earth Forces had insisted on sending a military vessel for first contact, despite the diplomats' objections. 3 centuries of devastating wars before achieving global unification had left humanity unwilling to venture into the unknown without adequate protection. The alien delegation emerged from their shuttle with graceful movements. Leading them was High Ambassador Tellurian, a tall being with iridescent skin that shifted colors like oil on water. Behind him came representatives from 5 other Alliance species, each more exotic than the last. "Commander Reyes," Tellurian said with a slight bow, his voice musical through the translation device. "On behalf of the Galactic Cooperative Alliance, I greet you and your species. We look forward to welcoming humanity into our community of civilizations." Elena returned the bow. "Ambassador Tellurian, the United Earth Government welcomes you aboard the UES Valiant. We're honored by your presence and eager to establish peaceful relations." The tour of the ship began cordially enough. The aliens were polite, asking questions about human culture, government, and history. It wasn't until they reached the weapons control center that the mood changed. "This is one of our 4 fire control stations," Elena explained as they entered a reinforced room filled with targeting computers and weapon systems displays. "From here, we can coordinate the Valiant's primary and secondary weapon arrays." Ambassador Tellurian's skin shifted to a deep purple, a reaction Elena couldn't interpret. 4 independent fire control stations?" he asked. "For redundancy." "Correct," Elena nodded. "If one or more stations are damaged in combat, the others can maintain weapons capability." A smaller alien with compound eyes and mandibles, introduced as General Krizik of the Taraxian Defense Fleet, stepped forward. "You design your vessels expecting multiple critical systems to be destroyed during engagement." "Of course," Elena replied, puzzled by the question. "All UEF vessels are designed to remain combat effective, despite sustaining significant damage." The aliens exchanged glances that Elena recognized as concern, despite their alien features. "Perhaps," Ambassador Tellurian suggested carefully, "we should continue the tour." As they moved through the ship, Elena noted the increasing discomfort of her guests. When they reached the armory and saw the variety of weaponry for boarding actions and repelling boarders, General Krizik's mandibles clicked rapidly. "You prepare for close-quarters combat aboard vessels?" the Taraxian asked. "Standard protocol," Elena confirmed. "If hostile forces board the ship, every crew member is trained to defend their section." Tellurian's skin had settled into a muted gray. In Alliance space, combat between vessels almost never results in boarding actions. It would be considered barbaric. Elena kept her expression neutral, though her mind raced. These aliens clearly had very different ideas about warfare than humans did. "Perhaps you could tell me more about Alliance military protocols," she suggested diplomatically. Later, in the Valiant's conference room, Elena sat with her senior officers as Ambassador Tellurian explained the Alliance approach to interstellar conflict. In the rare instances where diplomatic solutions fail, the ambassador explained. Our conflicts follow strict conventions. Combat focuses on disabling opposing vessels without loss of life when possible. Ships signal surrender when outmatched, and crews are granted safe passage. Total destruction of an enemy vessel is considered a failure of tactics, not a victory. Commander Rice exchanged glances with her tactical officer, Lieutenant Commander Ortiz, who looked as perplexed as she felt. "What about enemies who don't follow these conventions?" Ortiz asked. "All civilized species understand these principles." Another alien, a floating gas-bag creature named Diplomat Horvin, interjected. "It's a sign of advancement beyond primitive conflict." Elena detected the subtle condescension in the statement but chose to ignore it. "On Earth, we faced enemies who sought total annihilation. Our military doctrine developed accordingly." "Surely those were pre-unification conflicts," Tellurian said with what seemed like forced optimism. "Now that humanity has achieved global peace, you'll find alliance conventions much more evolved." The human officers remained silent. They knew Earth's history, how close humanity had come to extinction during the resource wars and the collapse. The hard lessons learned through suffering and survival were encoded in their military doctrine, their ship designs, and their training. "We look forward to learning from your experience," Elena finally said, choosing diplomacy over confrontation. The next day, by mutual agreement, an Alliance inspection team was permitted to conduct a more thorough examination of the Valiant systems. Elena assigned Lieutenant Commander Ortiz to accompany them, with instructions to be cooperative but to safeguard classified technologies. When Ortiz returned to give his report, his expression was grim. "They were particularly interested in our point defense systems, Commander," he said. "When I explained our layered approach, energy screens, interceptor drones, and kinetic countermeasures, they seemed genuinely disturbed. Their chief engineer, a Valrian, kept repeating that it was excessive redundancy." "Did they share anything about their own defense systems?" Elena asked. "They rely primarily on energy shields. When I asked about backup systems, they explained that Alliance vessels prefer to concede combat if shields fail rather than continue fighting. They called it honorable withdrawal." Elena leaned back in her chair, processing this information. "They fight wars with rules," she said quietly. "They've never faced an enemy that wanted to exterminate them." "There's more," Ortiz continued. "They were shocked by our reactor containment protocols, specifically the fact that we have systems designed to channel overloads into specific sections to save the ship as a whole. Sacrificing the few to save the many," Elena nodded. "Standard emergency procedure. They called it designed crew sacrifice." Their cultural attaché was visibly distressed. Elena sighed. First contact was proving more complicated than anyone had anticipated, not because the aliens were hostile, but because they found humanity's approach to warfare morally repugnant. 3 days later, Elena was summoned to a meeting with the full Alliance diplomatic delegation aboard their command vessel, the Harmonious Accord. Unlike the utilitarian design of the Valiant, the alien ship was a marvel of artistic engineering. Its interior spaces filled with living plants, water features, and ambient lighting that shifted in soothing patterns. Ambassador Tellurian led her to a circular chamber where representatives from all 17 Alliance species waited. Elena immediately sensed the tension in the room, despite the alien's unfamiliar body language. "Commander Reyes," Tellurian began formally, "the Alliance Council has reviewed the findings from our cultural and technological exchange. We have concerns about integrating human vessels into Alliance space at this time." Elena had expected something like this. "What specifically concerns you, Ambassador?" An alien with crystalline features that Elena recognized as a Lynthan elder spoke up. "Your species designs warships with capabilities far beyond what is considered acceptable within Alliance conventions. Your weapons systems, tactical doctrines, and even crew protocols reflect a mindset incompatible with our principles of civilized conflict." With respect, Elena replied carefully, Our ship designs reflect the threats we've faced in our history. We've learned hard lessons about survival. Yes, we've studied your historical records, said a new voice, a small furry being with multiple limbs. Your species has an unusually violent past, even among emerging civilizations. You've brought these adaptations into space with you. Elena felt her patience wearing thin. Those adaptations ensured our survival. We won't apologize for being prepared. No one is asking for apologies. Tellurian intervened smoothly. But the Alliance must consider the safety of all member species. Human military technology represents a significant disruption to the balance we've maintained for centuries. Are you saying humanity isn't welcome in the Alliance? Elena asked directly. Not at all. Tellurian's skin shifted to a calming blue pattern. We simply propose a period of integration during which human vessels would be modified to comply with Alliance standards. Your weapon systems would be limited to acceptable parameters, and certain redundant systems would be removed to align with our philosophical approach to conflict. Elena couldn't believe what she was hearing. They wanted to neuter Earth's defenses based on their cultural discomfort with human military doctrine. Ambassador, she said with forced calm, I'm not authorized to negotiate modifications to UEF vessel designs. That would require consultation with Earth's government and military command. Of course, Tellurian nodded. However, until such modifications are implemented, we must unfortunately restrict human military vessels to the border regions of Alliance space. For safety reasons. The message was clear. The Alliance considered human warships too dangerous to operate freely in their territory, not because they feared human aggression, but because they feared the precedent such ships would set. The very existence of vessels designed to fight without rules, to survive at any cost, challenged their centuries-old conventions. As Elena returned to the Valiant, she composed her report to Earth Command in her mind. How would she explain that humanity's first interstellar allies considered them too savage to be trusted with their own military technology? That the very measures humans had developed to ensure their survival were viewed as barbaric by the wider galactic community. More importantly, how would Earth respond? Would they agree to hobble their defenses to gain acceptance? Or would they stand firm, even if it meant isolation? As the Valiant prepared to return to Earth with the diplomatic team, Elena stared out at the gleaming Alliance vessels. They were beautiful ships, she had to admit, elegant and advanced. But she couldn't shake the feeling that their beauty was a luxury afforded by centuries without facing a truly existential threat. She wondered how long their philosophical approach to warfare would last if they ever encountered an enemy that didn't play by their civilized rules. She didn't know then how soon they would all find out. The true enemy arrives. The emergency transmission reached the Valiant 3 days into its journey back to Earth. Commander Elena Rice was awakened from a rare deep sleep by the urgent chime of her personal communicator. Commander to the bridge, Priority Alpha. Lieutenant Park's voice was tight with tension. Elena dressed in 30 seconds flat and was on the bridge 2 minutes later, her mind fully alert despite the hour. Report, she demanded as she strode to the command chair. Distress signal from the Alliance border outpost at Proxima Denari, Park explained, bringing up the message on the main display. It's fragmented, but they're under attack by an unknown force. The message played on the screen, visual static interspersed with panicked voices and glimpses of destruction. An Alliance official, his iridescent skin flashing rapid patterns of distress, shouted over the chaos. Overwhelming our defenses. Unknown vessels, not responding to surrender signals. Request immediate. Before the transmission cut to black, Elena caught a glimpse of something massive and dark moving against the backdrop of stars. How far? She asked. 6 hours at maximum burn, Lieutenant Commander Ortiz replied from the tactical station. Elena didn't hesitate. Set course. Emergency speed. Alert all hands to battle stations. As the bridge crew leaped into action, she added, and get me Earth Command on a secure channel. We may be heading into something bigger than we can handle alone. The Valiant dropped out of FTL on the outskirts of the Proxima Denari system, sensors immediately scanning for threats. Multiple energy signatures, the sensor officer reported. Numerous Alliance vessels, most showing critical damage or power failures. And something else. Vessel configurations unlike anything in our database. On screen, Elena ordered. The main display filled with a scene of devastation. The elegant Alliance ships, once so pristine and beautiful, drifted in various states of destruction. Some were torn open, atmosphere venting into space. Others appeared intact but powerless, drifting silently. But what drew everyone's attention were the attacking vessels, if they could even be called that. Are those organic? Lieutenant Commander Ortiz whispered. The hostile ships resembled nothing so much as massive insects or deep-sea predators. Chitinous exoskeletons protecting amorphous, pulsating interiors. They moved with uncanny precision. Swarms of smaller craft, like drones or fighters, emerging from cavernous openings in their sides. No recognition in any Alliance database, the communications officer confirmed. But they're broadcasting something, not in any known language. It's just noise. As they watched, one of the alien vessels approached a damaged Alliance cruiser. The cruiser was clearly attempting to signal surrender, its energy systems deliberately powered down in accordance with Alliance conventions. The alien vessel showed no response to the surrender protocol. Instead, it extended what looked like organic grappling appendages, seized the cruiser, and began to systematically tear it apart. My God, Elena breathed. They're not just destroying the ships. They're harvesting them. Commander, Park interrupted urgently. We're receiving a transmission from an Alliance vessel. It's the Harmonious Accord. The face of Ambassador Tellurian appeared on a side screen. His normally smooth features were ragged with stress, his skin cycling through chaotic color patterns. Commander Reyes, he gasped, you must withdraw immediately. These are the Myriad, a species we believe to be mere legend. They consume technology and biomatter to replicate. Our weapons are ineffective, and they do not acknowledge surrender protocols. We're not leaving, Elena stated firmly. How many Alliance civilians are in the system? The outpost housed over 20,000, Tellurian replied, his voice breaking. But you don't understand. The Myriad don't follow any conventions of warfare. They simply consume. I understand perfectly, Elena replied, her voice hard. Lieutenant Park, signal Earth Command. Request all available support vessels to divert to our position. Then open a channel to any functional Alliance ships. Within moments, the faces of several Alliance commanders appeared on the screen, each showing signs of shock and defeat. This is Commander Reyes of the UES Valiant, she began without preamble. We're engaging the hostile force. Any Alliance vessels capable of combat operations should rally to our position. Those with civilian evacuees should form up behind us. We'll provide cover for your withdrawal. The Alliance commanders exchanged bewildered glances. Commander, one of them, a Taraxian captain, chittered urgently. Our remaining combat vessels are too damaged to be effective, and the Myriad will not respect withdrawal protocols. I'm not counting on protocols, Elena replied grimly. I'm counting on making ourselves a bigger threat than you are. Ortiz, bring all weapons systems online. Deploy combat drones in defensive formation, and prepare the experimental mass driver. As the bridge crew rushed to comply, the Taraxian captain stared at Elena in shock. You intend to engage directly, with a single vessel. We intend to survive, Elena corrected him. And to buy time for your civilians to escape. Now get your evacuation ships moving. As the Alliance vessels struggled to form up, the Valiant accelerated toward the heart of the conflict. The nearest Myriad vessel, a behemoth nearly 3 times the size of the human ship, turned to face this new threat. They've noticed us, Ortiz reported. Energy spike. They're charging weapons. Evasive pattern delta. Elena ordered calmly. Deploy countermeasures. Let's show them what a human warship can do. The Valiant erupted into action, executing maneuvers that would have torn apart the more elegantly designed Alliance vessels. The ship's structural reinforcements, deemed excessively redundant by Alliance engineers, now proved their worth as the Valiant endured forces that strained even its advanced materials. The myriad vessel fired, a searing beam of energy that would have annihilated an Alliance ship. The Valiant's layered defenses activated in sequence. The energy dispersion screen scattered part of the beam. The kinetic barriers absorbed more of the impact, and the armored hull took the remainder of the hit. Minimal damage to sections 12 through 15, reported the damage control officer. All systems operational. Elena allowed herself a grim smile. Return fire. All batteries. Target their propulsion systems. The Valiant's weapons, designed to keep fighting even after significant damage, unleashed a barrage that took the myriad vessel by surprise. Instead of the controlled, limited attacks they had faced from Alliance ships, the human vessel struck with overwhelming force, targeting critical systems without hesitation. On the secondary display, Elena could see the Alliance commanders watching in astonishment as the Valiant engaged in combat tactics they had deemed barbaric just days earlier. The myriad vessel reeled under the assault, organic matter and unknown technologies spilling from the wounds torn in its exoskeleton. But it recovered quickly, calling several smaller vessels to its aid. Multiple hostiles converging on our position, Ortiz warned. They're adapting to our attack pattern. Switch to Protocol Epsilon, Elena ordered, and deploy the Nemesis packages. The Nemesis system, Neural Electromagnetic Multispectrum Interference Swarm, was one of Earth's most closely guarded weapons technologies. Designed during the last days of the resource wars, it consisted of self-guiding drones that penetrated enemy systems and unleashed electromagnetic chaos, disrupting command functions and communications. As the swarm of tiny drones shot toward the approaching myriad vessels, Elena turned to communications. Signal the Alliance ships. Tell them we're creating a corridor for evacuation. They need to move now. The Alliance vessels, finally grasping Elena's strategy, began to maneuver their civilian transports through the gap the Valiant was carving in the myriad formation. The human warship stood its ground, absorbing punishment that would have destroyed any Alliance vessel 3 times over. Hull breach in Section 18, reported the damage control officer. Emergency bulkheads holding. Rerouting power to secondary systems. Maintain position, Elena ordered. Are the civilians clear? 60% through the corridor, Park confirmed. But we're drawing more myriad attention. 3 large vessels changing course to intercept us. Elena studied the tactical display, assessing their increasingly dire situation. The Valiant was tough, but not invincible. They needed to buy more time, but at this rate, they wouldn't last long enough for all the civilians to escape. Just as she was about to order a change in tactics, a new alert sounded from the sensor station. Multiple FTL signatures detected, the officer announced, his voice rising in excitement. Commander, it's ours. The space around them suddenly filled with human warships. The UES Thunder, the UES Defiant, and 3 other heavy cruisers from Earth's defensive fleet. They emerged from FTL in perfect formation, weapons already charging. Admiral Chen's face appeared on the command screen. Looks like you started the party without us, Commander Reyes. Glad you could make it, Admiral. Elena replied, relief evident in her voice despite her professional demeanor. We're creating an evacuation corridor for Alliance civilians. Understood. Battle Group Delta will reinforce your position. The rest of us will engage their main force. And Commander, Earth Command has authorized Protocol Omega for this engagement. Elena's eyes widened slightly. Protocol Omega. Unrestricted warfare. The gloves were truly coming off. As the human fleet engaged, the difference in combat philosophy became starkly apparent. Where Alliance vessels had attempted to disable key systems on myriad ships, allowing for honorable withdrawal, the human warships struck with devastating precision, and overwhelming force. They targeted critical vulnerabilities, used coordinated attack patterns that sacrificed individual advantage for collective effect, and employed weapons systems specifically designed to cause catastrophic failure in enemy vessels. The Myriad, for the first time, found themselves on the defensive. Their tactics, so effective against the more predictable and constrained Alliance forces, faltered against the seemingly chaotic, but actually precisely coordinated human assault. From the harmonious accord, Ambassador Tellurian and the Alliance leadership watched in stunned silence as the human fleet drove back the Myriad attackers. The same military philosophy they had deemed primitive and barbaric was now the only thing standing between them and annihilation. Their tactics, murmured a Linthan elder, crystalline features reflecting the battle on the view screen. They fight as if defeat means extinction. For much of their history, it did. Tellurian replied quietly. We judged them without understanding. As the battle progressed, something unexpected happened. Several Alliance vessels, those still capable of combat operations, began to move from the evacuation formation back toward the conflict. Commander, Park reported with surprise, 3 Alliance cruisers are requesting coordination with our attack pattern. Elena raised an eyebrow, but didn't hesitate. Transmit tactical data. Integrate them into Formation Bravo 6. The Alliance vessels, elegant but damaged, took positions alongside human warships. They couldn't match the raw destructive power of the Earth vessels, but they adapted quickly, using their more advanced sensor systems to identify vulnerabilities in the myriad bioships that the humans might have missed. It was a tenuous cooperation born of desperate circumstances, but as the hours passed, the combined fleet pushed the myriad back from the outpost. The alien harvesters, faced with prey that fought with unexpected ferocity, finally began to retreat. 6 hours later, the last myriad vessel jumped to FTL, leaving behind a graveyard of destroyed ships, both their own and Alliance vessels that hadn't escaped in time. The human fleet, battered but largely intact, maintained defensive positions around the surviving Alliance ships. On the bridge of the Valiant, Elena allowed herself to slump slightly in her command chair as damage reports flowed in. The ship had taken a beating. 3 sections exposed to vacuum, multiple system failures, and 17 crew members in medical with various injuries. But they had survived. More importantly, they had saved thousands of Alliance civilians who would otherwise have been harvested by the myriad. Commander, Park interrupted her thoughts. The harmonious accord is requesting permission to dock. Ambassador Tellurian wishes to come aboard. Elena straightened in her chair, quickly running a hand through her disheveled hair. Grant permission. I'll meet him in docking bay 2. When Tellurian stepped aboard the Valiant, he looked different than Elena remembered. Gone was the slightly condescending poise of a diplomat from an advanced civilization. In its place was a humbled leader who had witnessed the near destruction of everything he believed in. Commander Reyes, he began, his skin shifting through subdued patterns of blue and violet. I lack adequate words to express the gratitude of the Alliance. Without your intervention, without human intervention, we would have lost not just this outpost, but likely much more. Elena nodded, accepting the thanks with grace. We did what any responsible spacefaring species would do, Ambassador. No, Tellurian shook his head firmly. We would not have done the same. We could not have done the same. Our principles, what we thought were the height of civilized behavior, nearly doomed us all. He gestured around at the battle-damaged interior of the Valiant. This ship, which we deemed too aggressive, too focused on combat at the expense of diplomacy, saved thousands of lives today, precisely because it was designed the way it is. Elena led the ambassador to the conference room, where Admiral Chen and several other human officers were already gathered. The Alliance representatives who followed Tellurian looked around with new eyes at the human vessel, seeing not primitive excess but necessary preparation. The myriad will return, Admiral Chen stated without preamble once everyone was seated. Our intelligence suggests this was merely a scouting force. A murmur of alarm ran through the Alliance representatives. "How can you know this?" asked a Taraxian general, his compound eyes reflecting worry. "Because it's what we would do," Chen replied simply. "Test defenses, gauge response, retreat to analyze and return in greater force. It's basic military strategy when facing unknown opposition." "Then we are doomed," said another Alliance representative, a floating gasbag creature that Elena recognized as Diplomat Horvin. "Our fleets cannot withstand another attack of even this magnitude, let alone a larger force." "You won't face them alone," Elena said firmly. "But we need to be practical about this. The Alliance approach to warfare, limiting conflict to minimize casualties, is admirable in principle, but it assumes your opponent shares those values. The Myriad clearly do not," Tellurian acknowledged. "They are like nothing we have encountered in 2 millennia of peaceful expansion." Admiral Chen leaned forward. "Ambassador, the United Earth government is prepared to offer full military support against this threat. But we cannot, will not, modify our vessels or tactics to conform to Alliance conventions, not when those conventions have proven ineffective against a real enemy." There was a moment of tension as the Alliance representatives exchanged glances. Then, to Elena's surprise, the Taraxian general spoke up. "We would be fools to ask you to," he said, mandibles clicking decisively. "My ship fought alongside yours today, Commander Reyes. We survived because we abandoned our conventions and adopted some of your pragmatism." In the days that followed, as Alliance and human vessels worked side by side to evacuate the damaged outpost and prepare defenses for the expected Myriad return, Elena noticed a subtle shift in how the Alliance personnel interacted with her crew. The faint condescension was gone, replaced by respect and genuine curiosity. Alliance engineers studied the Valiant's redundant systems with new appreciation. Their tactical officers engaged in lengthy discussions with Ortiz about layered defense strategies and asymmetric warfare. Even the more philosophical among them began to understand that humanity's approach to conflict wasn't simply about aggression. It was about survival at any cost. 1 month later, when the main Myriad fleet arrived at the borders of Alliance space, they found not a disorganized collection of beautiful, vulnerable ships, but a combined fleet of Alliance and human vessels. The Alliance ships still maintained their elegant design, but they now bristled with human-designed weapon systems and operated with tactics that would have been considered unconscionable just weeks earlier. Standing on the bridge of the newly repaired Valiant, Elena watched as the combined fleet moved into formation around the Myriad approach vector. Beside her stood Ambassador Tellurian, now serving as the Alliance liaison to the human fleet. "They believed we were too dangerous for galactic warfare," Elena mused, almost to herself. Perhaps they were right, just not in the way they thought. Tellurian's skin rippled with what Elena had come to recognize as wry amusement. "Indeed, Commander. The Alliance feared human warships because they challenged our comfortable illusions about the nature of conflict. We failed to understand that true peace isn't maintained by limiting our capacity for war. It's secured by ensuring the cost of aggression is too high for any rational enemy to accept." As the Myriad fleet appeared on long-range sensors, Elena squared her shoulders and moved to her command chair. The Alliance had feared human warships because they were designed not just to fight, but to win at any cost. Now, facing an enemy that threatened all sentient life, that philosophy of warfare had become their greatest hope. "All vessels, battle formation Delta," she ordered calmly. "Let's show them what happens when you threaten our galaxy." Around her, the combined fleet, human and alien alike, prepared for combat, united in their determination to survive. The Myriad were about to learn why human warships were considered too dangerous for galactic warfare, and why that was exactly what the galaxy needed.